I messed something up.
All right, it's time to get back to boats.
Yay!
Welcome to Skylark, our Great Loop project boat. We purchased her down in St. Petersburg, Florida, and cruised her all the way home to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Watch as we do some very in-depth projects to prep her for the Great Loop at the end of 2026.
Alright, since the boat has decided to disable itself and more or less ruin our weekend, and now while I am trying to decide and figure out exactly what I need to do with this boat transmission wise, I'm going to do some more maintenance to the boat that is much needed, that I've been putting off because the boat is running and we can go out and have fun with it, but that is over now. So what I'm going to do is remove both injector pumps. Yes, both of them. I know I've already removed and rebuilt the one on the port side engine. However, I'm having a starting issue ever since the rebuild. It will start out fine when it's cold, but after the boat has been running for a while and you shut the boat off, you want to go anchor somewhere for a little bit and you go try to restart it, it won't restart unless you bump it with a little bit of ether, which is not good. So we are going to remove that one, tear back into it, and see what might have been put together wrong. I'm also going to remove the starboard side one because it also needs to be resealed. So that's going to be a start to doing some of the maintenance that has been required for doing any more long range cruising with this thing. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the port side engine. I'm just going to fast forward you guys through that one because there's no room for me and the camera down there.
Now this is probably a good time to tell you this is the second time I've removed this pump. The first time I definitely addressed all the leaks. However, I have the starting problem now. After doing a ton of research, I believe what I've done is put a very tiny component in backwards. I most likely could have fixed it while it was in the boat, but I decided to remove it. That way I can just completely double check everything.
Alright, so anyway, that is the port side pump. I got that one off, and I'll give you a little bit more detail on taking off the starboard side pump because I could just get in there a whole lot easier with the camera. Alright, here we are. Here is the port side injection pump. It's the Lucas Cav pump. That's what they use on these Perkins. And I don't think I have to take nearly as much stuff off of this side as I do that side because I got a lot more access to the side of the motor here. I mean, you gotta think the wall is right here, or the fuel tank rather. So on the other side, I did have to remove the shutdown solenoid completely because I just needed the room to access in right here. I think that's really the only thing that really needed to be removed. Now, I do have some wiring here still. I just don't know what any of this garbage goes to. That's another video for another day. I want to completely go over the wiring that's on these boats, or on the motors. Anyway, the only thing that really has to happen on this side, I think, is I just need to take this cotter pin off here, pull this little shaft out, and then right in here, there's an 11mm nut, and take this linkage off that goes to the throttle, and then obviously the injector lines, and then after that, there's 3 bolts, and then the third one is way back here and it's super hard to get to. Now, one thing I did fail to mention is there's a fuel line here and a fuel line up there. And what I had to do on the other side is I had to take this line out with the pump. It snakes up over here, and I end up lifting it out with a pump because I cannot get this way into here. So this one's out enough, and it should be good. Before you take these things off, you can see right here, see where there's a couple lines scribed in there? If you don't have any lines on your pump, make sure you scribe some lines. So when you put it back on, you put it back on exactly where it goes, so the pump timing is really, really close to being where it used to be. Now, I will tell you, that is what it says to do in the service manual for these engines, is to scribe a line and remove the pump. Part of me, I'm not real big on doing that. I mean, I'm big on scribing the line to put it back as close as you can. The part I'm not real big about is leaving it at just that. So it works. It'll probably work fine for most of everybody. But if anybody has ever worked with diesels, the pump timing is incredibly sensitive. Like a hundredth of an inch can actually kind of throw it out of whack a little bit. Not like in a crazy amount, but maybe just a little bit. Especially with these diesels, which are direct injection diesels, the pump timing is extremely critical. And the way the service manual wants you to fine tune the pump is, it sounds a little sketchy, but remove the valve cover, remove the valve spring, put the piston to top dead center. All right, remove the valve spring, let the valve drop in and hit the piston. I know how disastrous that sounds, but to hit the piston, put a dial indicator on it, and move the engine with a wrench until you get to top dead center on the dial indicator. And on this pump here, you have this little window, and you take this little window off, and you can line the pump up. There's a line on a wheel in there, and then there's another mark to line it up, and that's how they do it. So I don't know if it's fully necessary to do it, but if you want to make sure your pump is dead on time, it's probably a good idea to do. And it's also probably a good idea to do if you want to really long range cruise your boat, because at that point, like, let's just say the Great Loop, it's 6,000 or 7,000 miles to do the Great Loop. Well, over that, 6,000 or 7,000 miles, and you got like 0.3 less miles to the gallon, that makes a big difference. It does, in the end, and your fuel cost. I'm probably looking at like $15,000-ish to do this loop on this boat with fuel. And if I get it off like a couple points of a mile to the gallon, it could cost me a couple grand. I don't know. So that's why I feel like it's so important that everything on this boat is extremely fine-tuned. And when I put these pumps back on, I am going to check the timing per service manual for Perkins. And also, I'm putting all new injectors on both engines. The reasoning for that is with diesels, over time, their injectors wear out. They don't atomize the fuel as well. They drip. All this makes a difference, so like the engines being fine-tuned to optimal peak performance and efficiency, all the way to properly maintained props in the bottom of the boat makes a big difference too. So all that's going to be done, and I'm hoping I can increase at least a half a mile to the gallon with this boat after everything's done, because we got a mile to the gallon coming up the Bigby. I know we're going upstream with it, so that's it's kind of not that great for this boat. So anyway, we'll get back to it. And what I was wanting to show you is there's a bolt way back here. I don't know how well we can see it, but that one bolt, to get to that one bolt, all right, now that is the starboard side pump. Starboard port. All right, so I am 99% sure I got this pump here straightened out. This is the one on the port side engine. It's also the one that I resealed a couple months ago. And the problem I've been having with it is a starting issue with this engine. It would start up fine for whatever reason on a cold start. It did kind of take a little bit more cranking than what I thought it should take to get it to start, but it did start up and run fine. Once the engine was running, it was running good. But what happened was every time I would go take the boat on a cruise and then go hang out in a slough somewhere or whatever, shut the boat off, not let the engines completely cool down to like ambient temperature, the engine would just not restart. It worked fine before when this thing was like leaking like a sieve on our trip up here from St. Pete. So I knew it was something that I must have done when I went to go reseal it. So what I did was take the starboard side off as well, because this one also needs to be resealed. It's not leaking nearly as bad as what the port side pump was leaking. And I had a suspicion that I might have got something wrong in this. I think they call this the priming pump or feed pump or something like that. There's a pump on the side of the motor that's actually the feed pump that feeds to this pump. This is some kind of vane pump in here. And there's like a check valve pressure regulator system somewhere in here when you take this off. It has a series of springs and plungers and screens, so I had a suspicion that there might have been something wrong with that. So I took it apart just piece by piece and laid it out, and then did the same thing with this. And that's when I found that I had one plunger turned around backwards. So now when I spin this pump over, it's wanting to shoot a little bit of diesel out of the actual injector tubes. And it wasn't doing that before. Like, you could put your thumb on it and turn it over and you couldn't really feel any sucking, but you could on this one. And now it feels really good. Like, it feels like it should. So that's why I feel like I got this problem nipped in the butt with this pump. So it is resealed from the previous removal, and now I think it should be operating correctly. So we're going to go ahead and put this one back on the boat, and then we're going to come back and take our time, tear this one down, and reseal this one.
Before we break into the next pump, I was going to tell you that these pumps are actually quite simple. The CAV or CAV pump is actually a quite simple design, and it's genius. And yet I still seem to struggle to get them right.
All right, now we got the pump put back on. Let's start it up and see if the problem is taken care of. I got no leaks coming from the pump at all, which is a good sign still. We're gonna let it get to operating temperature and see if it will restart. All right, let's shut her down and see if it will restart. Now if it restarts instantly, the problem's fixed. All right, the port side engine, as far as diesel leaks or any problems with the injector pump, are now done and complete. If you remember, look at the last video, video 6 of us coming up the Tom Bigby and onto the Tennessee River. I think it was either 5 or 6. You'll see this engine is just pouring diesel fuel out of the injector pump, and that's what I did when we got back, kind of the first repair video that I didn't really get any footage of. Taking this injector pump off, taking it home, completely resealing it, and reinstalling it. Well, I took care of all the diesel leaks at that point, but we still had a starting issue with it. It would start up okay-ish on a cold start, and then when we would go out, get it up to operating temperature, shut it off, and then try to restart, it would not restart. We always had to bump it with a little bit of ether just to get it to kick off. I only done it a few times. I don't like doing that, but either way, we now have it fixed. It is good to go. The one thing here on the starboard engine that I do want to kind of check out is just kind of see how bad this multi-cooler is. I don't know really what the proper terms for this one is, but it does the oil, the trans, and the turbo after cooling. I was going to pull this off and just see how bad it is as far as like barnacles and growth. Since this is the engine that had the transmission failure, I'm gonna have to remove this anyway to clean it all out. You know, in all fairness, it really doesn't look that bad at all. There might be like a few blades of like seagrass that made its way through the strainer in there, but it's really not that bad. But either way, I'm going to take it off and thoroughly clean it. But I'm going to save removing it for another day. Today, we are going to reseal the starboard side pump. We are just going to reseal it. I'm not rebuilding it. I know I said rebuild on the port side pump, but we did not rebuild that pump. We just resealed it. That being said, I'm not taking this pump completely apart. I'm just taking it apart enough to redo all the rubber seals and the crush washers, and that's it. So that's what we're doing here. Not a complete rebuild, not a complete teardown, just a reseal. So let's get started with it. We're gonna start by removing all the injector tubes first.
Okay, so here's the deal. Initially, I was going to do a step-by-step how-to on this pump. Unfortunately, way too much went wrong to make it a very smooth, easy-going video. I am no way in any form or fashion a professional on these calf pumps.
The governor cap? Well, actually, I don't think it's called the governor cap. I don't really know what the proper name for this is, but it's just the side cap that has all the lever actuation stuff in it. Either way, this is what we're gonna take off next.
In a nutshell, I'm just like any other YouTube do-it-yourselfer, and I just learn as I go. In the end, the pump turned out just fine with no issues, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have to take it apart and put it back together several times before I felt like it was right. And the biggest mistake I made, and I'm embarrassed to even show this, but I broke one of the ears off of the pump. It was one of those moments I was being a little too aggressive trying to get it back together and didn't realize how much force I was putting on it.
Alright, let me tell you something. I am not an expert at this at all. I am just a DIY guy like most people. I'm what you call somebody who's knowledgeable about things but really an expert at nothing except for maybe the stuff I do for a living. And I'm not gonna rebuild these pumps for anybody at all because I don't feel comfortable enough working on this kind of stuff for other people. If I mess something up of my own, that is on me. If I mess up somebody else's stuff, then I am obligated to make it right. So this is one of those moments where I messed something up. I probably went at something a little too aggressive. The seal, the O-ring that goes around the pump head is just stubborn to try to get in the main pump body. Now, I notice a lot of people when they rebuild these pumps professionally, which I am not, they usually have a jig they bolt these things into, and that way they can work on it and do everything they need and clamp that jig in the vise or whatever. It is not recommended to just clamp this pump in the vise like I did, but I'm just working with what I have. I don't have a jig to put this thing in, nor do I really have the time to build one and so on. So if you are wanting to do this, be very careful. And this is why we put these things in a jig and be careful. As I said, the pump was being stubborn to put back together, so I'm just trying to tap it in with my...
That wasn't tapping, you moron.
And with the pump clamped in the vise, I broke the tab off the pump right here. I don't think it's the end of the world. It will still seal up without it. I might seek some options on trying to fix that a little bit. I don't know, this is bad, and I don't like showing this, but I'm going to show it because I normally know better, but I kind of get caught up in the moment and just try to, like, you know, I usually push things to the limits or not think of something, which I did both.
Again, I struggled with this one a little bit more than I did the other one. I probably took it apart and put it back together 2 or 3 times. In the end, it turned out just fine, and I eventually fixed the tab with some JB weld, and I believe it will be just fine as well.
I don't know what's wrong with me today.
I still can't get over what I did. It was just a complete stupid mistake. However, I don't think it's going to hinder the operation of the pump or cause any sealing issues. It is probably not worth the crazy high price what people want for components for these pumps. We will just swallow our pride and go on. If it becomes a problem later on down the road, we'll address it then.
let's test this thing out. The one thing that's always important to do is see if the cutoff solenoid actually works. It's working. It's gonna take a minute to prime it. Let me make sure nothing's leaking. Working all the air out. Not smoking very much, nothing. Only ran some 2. Alright, I got the rev all the way. I think there's a hose in the way of the throttle actuator. It only revved to 2,000 initially, and I got down there and looked, and there was a hose stopping it. So revs to 3,400, exactly what the other engine does. So I think she's good. All right, I got both engines revved up to about 1,500 RPM. I've been running that way for a while. They're up to temperature. Both injection pumps, 0 leaks. I mean 0, nothing. You don't really understand how much of a relief this is. I've dealt with these damn leaking injector pumps since day 1 on this boat. And it was really bad on our second half coming home of the Tom Bigby. It feels so good. Both engines run the way they should. I think this part of the repair and maintenance or whatever is over. Finally.
This is one of those times where you just feel like this should have been a very simple task and everything is just fighting you. Like I said earlier, it all turned out fine in the end. I've ran the engine several times, got them up to operating temperature several times. Everything seems to be all good. Now the next major mechanical task I'll have is rebuilding that transmission and installing it. I learned to be a little bit more careful, so maybe it won't go as bad as these calf pumps.